No. They do have like cleaning scholarships, which, I mean, she makes me sit there during her class even though she's 10.
Yeah.
So I have thought about like, should I just clean the windows for like a tuition
Yeah.
discount? But
Let's get this rolling.
oh, sorry.
Someone else doesn't have to do that anymore. So let's call this to order. It's 5 o'clock. It's the Park Board meeting for September 12th. Call to order. Item 1, roll call on. Item 2.
Yeah. McDaniel,
Here.
Case,
Here.
Miller,
Present.
Frisch,
Here.
Herniman,
Present.
Jameson, and Knutson, both absent.
2 are not able to make it this evening because of other commitments that came up since we had scheduled this. So item 3, approval of the August 9th, 2023 meeting minutes. You got it in the packet. Any questions, clarifications on the meeting minutes? Call for approval.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Any conversation, any other thoughts? All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Moving on to opportunity for public appearances. So this allows the community input, the ability to present to the Park Board and talk with the Park Board. Doesn't necessarily have to be on the agenda in any items. Doesn't necessarily mean that the Park Board will respond to it, but leave up to 15 minutes. Is there anybody who would like to talk to the Park Board? What are you laughing at, Elise?
No reason.
No reason at all. Hearing none, move on to item 5, reports from the village staff. Item A, Director of Public Reports. It's update on the J.C. Park Phase 2 pricing.
So I get to wear 2 hats tonight as Public Works Director, and are our microphones not on? You can hear us? Okay, all right. For all the members of the audience, I want to make sure everybody can hear us.
For the recording, Elise.
Okay, so apologies as I might stumble through this a little bit. Jeff wrote the memo, and a lot of things have happened since the memo, so let's see if I can refresh my memory here. But as you know, we completed Phase 1 of the J.C. Community Park, which is now officially named. Thank you all for your help in that process. Last night, the board approved our name change, so that included the 3 competition-level ball fields, full-size rugby pitch and soccer fields, 6 pickleball courts, the memorial for the veterans with the flags, parking, stormwater, and the concession stand. So that was about a $4.5 million project all told. The village board and park board have both recommended this move forward for Phase 2 with design later this year and then construction for next year. So we did get that pricing back. That Phase 2 includes the 4th ball field, which is a larger playing field, additional rectangular multi-use playing fields, an adaptive playground with solid surfacing, maintenance shed, lighting for the competition ball fields, the play field, and the pickleball courts. So the cost estimate for just the construction I guess all told is about 3.538 million, which is what is over what we expected to borrow for this phase. Obviously, prices have only been going up. They're starting to stabilize, but with all these projects, we have to kind of think about what makes sense to do now. Do we want to borrow more? Do we want to kind of add that to the debt load for, just taking consideration all the other projects we have going on? So the largest amount, as you saw from his memo, of the cost estimate is the field lighting, which is just over $1 million, about 1.14. So Jeff's recommendation is that be pulled out into Phase 3, allow the other components of the project to be constructed in 24, and then that lighting could be added later. I believe both in Phase 1 and Phase 2, all of the conduit and so connections for that lighting will be done. So the bases will just be there, and then the actual lights themselves could be added in the future. So all that underground work can still be done to prep for that. So just kind of looking for your direction. If you feel that, it's important enough to kind of get this done, obviously expands usability of the park for evenings. But, in the summertime, it's lighter out. So, we haven't, I think, run this by all the sports organizations yet to see kind of how crucial is this to your playability of the fields and everything. Obviously, it'd be great to be able to afford to do everything all at once, but just like we had to break phase 1 and 2 apart, just the reality of the pricing here might necessitate breaking it down a little bit further. So would love to get your thoughts on this, and then we can put forth a recommendation to the village board, so we can kind of get going on whatever phase 2 will entail. So there's 2 recommended motions here, essentially just splitting it into the 3 phases, pulling out the lighting, or recommending that additional 1.14 million of borrowing could be done.
So this is Rattler's budget for the current estimated pricing. for this,
Yes,
correct?
yep, so that's kind of the following pages, so they've got kind of this is all based, they do a lot of projects, so this is pretty recent pricing too, just based on projects they're building elsewhere. So kind of goes through the construction items and then the contingency, and all of the soft costs, the design and construction observation and everything as well. So that's the all-in project. And then this is just a phase 2 map now. So showing the updated pickleball courts as they are, but that larger ball field, the 2 multi-use fields. I think this field would be just a mown area. So could be flexible and could be used for, just kind of family events, throwing a frisbee, that kind of thing. And then, all the areas really could, but the field 15 would actually have the lines marked and would have some of the drainage and things that we see like at Highlands and Netherwood fields, so a little bit more of a formalized playing field there. The playground area, and then this is where the maintenance shed is planned, and that's for a lot of the equipment needed for grooming the infields and like special mowing attachments for the outfields. A lot more convenient just to have that nearby for Public Works. So happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions
and
for the
get
park board?
get your thoughts on how to break things up here.
Go ahead.
I have a couple questions for you. The first question in terms of the lighting. So the 1.14 is strictly just the lights. The electricity, the conduit, getting all of the poles and things like that is not part of the 1.14, correct?
So it looks like, so I was scrolling through this. So it says, should be known that as part of phase 1 and planned phase 2, conduit and most of the light pole bases will be installed, preventing the park from being torn up in the future when the lighting will be installed. So I think it's actually just the light poles themselves. So the base would be included kind of regardless in phase 2, and all of the wiring will already have been done. So they'll essentially just be sitting, waiting for the poles to be connected.
Okay. Do we know, I guess, and you alluded to this, Elise, I would be interested to see what the sports organizations, obviously they're not going to be jazzed about losing some night time, but if they understand the situation, getting their point of view, sort of the idea of like, is this going to really impact the way that they had planned on using the facility? I know when it comes to JC Park, we say this a lot, there was a lot promised. There's a lot of people who are like waiting for this, have been waiting for this, and I would hate to pull the rug out from under them in the 9th hour. And then my last question or comment is, have we looked into the idea, it's probably not cost effective to like do lighting for one field during this phase and then like wait to do the other? I'm assuming that like once you buy all the lights, you buy all the lights and call it a day.
Yeah.
But if that's a compromise that like might be reasonable to say we'll have one lit field for, if there's an adult league or something like that that wants to go later or whatever the case might be. I don't know what that cost would look like, but it'd be
That leads
interesting
into
to
the
see.
question I was wondering about, what infrastructure costs originally. So you're obviously talking electrical gear, which is a lead time issue. So is that electrical gear, if you're going to do partial of the lighting system as well, how does that break out into the overall numbers that they have put together? So that's a similar question, because even has received emails on the pickleball aspect of that, because the pickleball isn't, in terms of the lighting portion of it, isn't a large portion at 85,000. But I don't know if that includes some of the infrastructure, so where does that apply in? Is it just an add-on device to it, where you have to still put in all the switch gear and everything else? And so I guess, so that was a little bit of the question, is how does that phase into impact it? So if we take that out, do you still do partial? Now, we didn't have any lighting there before, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the only fields that are currently lit are at Kaiser, so closer to the pool and everything. So those would continue to be lit. The tennis courts at Oak Street are still lit as well. So those are still usable for pickleball too, if somebody wanted to play in the evening. Jeff would definitely know kind of more of the ins and outs here. I was just kind of scrolling up. It looks like there's a site electrical allowance of 50,000, which is just kind of an estimate at this point. I would think too that all the lighting costs are down here in the landscaping and miscellaneous amenities, that obviously the 1.14 is in this total. But I imagine you could probably do some kind of cherry picking, but regardless, the total amount kind of planned to be borrowed, you'd still be going over that. It's just, well, how much do you feel comfortable going over? And I don't know if there's some kind of bulk pricing where, hey, you're getting all your lighting together, and it's probably, it's always cheaper when you don't have to mobilize like the same subcontractor twice. But things aren't getting any cheaper too, so there's no guarantee that this price is going to go up in the future. And it's possible that we could just add this in as soon as so the playing fields won't be playable probably until the soonest, we say fall of 25. No, so it's about a year growing in. So if we do construction on phase 2 through 24, they'll probably wrap up in fall of 24. Then you watch grass grow for about a year, and so fall of 25 is probably the soonest that this could be done. So obviously the pickleball courts are done and playable, and we have the other 3 ball diamonds playable now, and the large kind of rugby pitch on Perry Parkway. So those areas are still usable right now, but the whole park wouldn't even really be done and playable until fall of 25 at the soonest. So if the lighting, I'm not sure in terms of all the budget load, for adding 1.14 million or 1.2 maybe to the 2025 CIP, maybe that's another compromise. Phase 3 maybe can be done kind of right on the tails of phase 2, and it's not going to impact like the overall playability of the park in a big way, because we still have to wait a little while until everything's grown in.
Lisa, I had a question. Did they ever replace the lights at Oak Street for the tennis courts? Because I thought they cut those down.
Nope. Yep. Oh, sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So those came down with the one of them was rotted out,
Right,
and then we found
yeah.
that a couple of them were. So yeah.
So they're
Thanks.
still in.
Yep. So those are not lit. Yeah. I think that is now in our park plan to update that. So I think we'll probably next year reapply for that the DNR grant.
I have mixed feelings on this whole park process, or the whole design anyway, and the cost of it. But it kind of makes the donations from the couple of the sports clubs look a lot smaller in the scale of the overall project. So I guess I wouldn't be all too worried about what they think if there's not lights there, just because, hey, they will come at one point, and the fact that phase 2 got moved up, originally it got moved out, and then the village board thought it was important to move it back up to get the park finished. So I think that's kind of a compromise in itself. So if a way to kind of defer some of these payments and have the lights come in later, I think that would be okay in my mind. And Lynn, to your point about going, having some lights, I mean, it'd be easier if it was just an electrician coming in, putting in a light in your house versus having a crane come in, just
Yeah, probably
With-
all
with-
delivered in a flatbed.
Right, with all the added costs there, so, if it goes from 1.14 million to 1.2 million, a year or two later, is that really that much of a difference? I mean, I don't know. I guess that's for the village board to decide, but I'd be fine. I mean, it just stinks that we're paying this much for it to begin with, and we're kind of stuck that we have to finish this park, otherwise it's unfinished. So you're putting the village, we put ourselves in this bad spot to begin with. But I guess that's where I'd be in favor of deferring the lights until later.
Other comments? Go ahead.
What would the time frame be for phase 2, and then if we were to wait and do the lights in do the lights in phase 3? Phase 2. We do the lights in phase 3 if we were to wait. How much time would there be between getting lights in phase 2 versus if we pushed it out?
So, well, it's kind of, I guess, up to you all on the board to decide when phase 3 would happen, if that was,
Well, yeah, but like if
Lighting.
it were to be pushed out, like the lights.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I think, so like the fields that are included in phase 2, just because of the way that the turf is grown, they're probably not going to be playable until the fall of 25, at the soonest. So, but they're constructed in 24, so it's kind of like a spring through fall type project. So if the lights, let's say, like at the soonest, phase 3 lighting as added in the summer of 25, yeah, these other fields will be operating without lights for, this year and next year, and so maybe 3 seasons total. But these ones aren't even going to be playable until 25, so they wouldn't really lose any unlit
Yeah,
playing time.
yeah,
So
okay.
the timelines are kind of flexible. I think the actual like getting the lights and putting them up is probably relatively quick because everything else is kind of ready to go. So it would be a really short project, I think, once the funds are borrowed and the order is placed. Probably a quick install.
Jeannie, do you have anything?
Well, I'm just gathering information right now. But so what's lit are the baseball fields and the soccer field, or just the baseball fields?
So it'd be baseball fields. What's priced? Yeah, baseball fields, the pickleball courts, and then I think I forgot if it was both multi-use fields.
So I mean, we haven't
Phase
had
one,
any.
yeah.
Yeah,
Field.
lighting for the competition play field. So I think that's the rugby pitch,
Correct.
which is the big one here, the field 14.
So I was just kind of thinking of. I mean, we haven't really had night games, or they haven't had night games up to this point, correct? Unless they played on Kaiser
Yep.
Field. And how many extra games they'd be able to get in with lights. But again, you're talking summer and it's light till
Right. Obviously,
9:30ish.
stuff happens in the fall. I know there's a tournament that just happened down there, or is planned to happen. The dates
Usually
on the
that
baseball
is
tournament.
this Furies in September, so I don't think that's happening.
It was a
Series.
baseball tournament was planned.
Baseball.
Yeah, but so I don't know. I mean, it gets dark around 7:30 or something right now, but
Yeah, so I guess I was just trying to think in terms of how many more games could get scheduled and could the sports leagues grow, or like
right.
could the Fall Fury come back and that like be part of the I don't know, I guess I could really just it's nice having the discussion and hearing both sides because I kind of agree. It's a tough call.
Well, I look at it as there's some pretty rash comments that came back from the park planning overall. If you look at those, I think Andy counted them and said over 300. And there's some pretty bold ones that were pretty stern. And I just feel hesitant about going and asking for more money right now in the middle of some of those comments. And it's the social media world. You can blast things out and not necessarily get recognized, so we don't always know where they came from one way or the other. I know that the soccer field's looking for place, and so that's some of the comments, that they were looking for fields. And so having these fields, I do agree that we haven't had lights, and it hasn't deterred a whole lot. So I don't think it's really taking that much away. Even if you do a tournament, you're going to end up having a daytime tournament, and you'll go to a certain time frame. So I really believe we should hold off on doing anything in regards to the lighting. I do know that pickleball has gained a lot of awareness, and there's a whole bunch of lots of people, and even some people in the park board joined onto that. And so if there's that opportunity that we can phase in some parts and pieces of that and try to make some of this work, because they do use it quite a bit, longer time frames, and it's not a big field. But my feeling is that I really don't want to go to ask for any more money, to try to make it happen. If we've got to reduce it to move ahead with what we had put in a capital plan, I would say then see what we can fit in, and potentially look at these and potentially see if we can piecemeal this out to make the numbers work.
And I was reading, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
The comments today too, so that was kind of fresh in my mind as we were talking about the money and the phases and all of that. But, and like you had said, we're not taking anything away necessarily because we don't have the lights, but what can we add if we have the lights? Like, how much more opportunity does that bring then to some of these sports leagues or organizations?
I will say, I think just the improved facilities and having the concession stand, I mean, that'll be wrapped up later this fall. The pickleball courts are such an improvement from what we have on Oak Street. So, I mean, even just the infrastructure itself is already drawing people in, and I think we'll draw tournaments. And yeah, they may be limited to hours, but that's kind of what we had to work with before, and with poor quality facilities. So, I mean, yeah, ultimately up to you all on the board, but I think that's a good approach and kind of a compromise given the whole, state of the fundraising and just the cost of construction. And I mean, we had to do that with the village hall design and library design and everything. You design and then you kind of scale it back and you think about what you can add later and just try to not bite off more than you can chew. But
I have a follow-up comment and then one question. One, I think you're right there that we're not taking these away. We're just pushing it. We're just waiting a year on it. So it's not like we're cutting this out completely, saying there's not going to be lights. It's just the lights are coming. We just have to find a way to pay for them and be responsible about that. But my question is, when teams are using fields and they end up turning the lights on, is there a cost that gets pushed onto those teams, or does the village eat that cost? Because I know, like where I grew up, if tennis courts would be different. They just had a timer that was on there. But if you turn the lights on at a baseball field, it was $100. I didn't know what the structure was here.
speak to that.
We haven't discussed it specifically. I mean, I would imagine there would be a slight rate increase, but nothing
I think
too significant.
Yeah, like at Kaiser Park right now, I think it's just a switch, and that's just part of the. Well, there's a reservation fee attached with that, and maybe that's something we look at when these fields are up and running. I know we're kind of working on like a concession stand, reservation policy and all those things too. I think a lot of those controls would be in the concession stand. So probably not super often that they would even be used, but again, it's how, we're not playing as much at night because that's just not an option
Right. I mean,
right now. So.
we're not going to make $1.14 million off of increased
no.
reservation fees
No.
in the evening, but I think as a way to just offset the cost of the electricity, to change that reservation cost. But we can discuss that at a different time. So I'm fine with, like I said before, with a motion to defer, but we can go from there, Mark.
For the motion number one.
Yeah, that I would.
Not to muddy the waters, if I do, just ignore me. Could we make a motion or propose to bring this back to us in a year instead of like having to wait to phase 3 whenever phase 3 happens. Can we look at what the cost looks like for lighting with the CIP for next, like, could we look at it sooner than maybe phase 3? I agree that I think in this current situation, asking for more money is probably not a great spot. So maybe we like just keep an eye on it so that like when we do feel ready, we're ready to do that. Or does that mess up the phase system?
I think the best part about it is phase 3 is entirely up to us and the village board.
Yeah.
Right, this would be the
Because-
only part of phase 3. There's nothing kind of
Right.
Oh.
remaining.
Yeah,
Lighting
the
is phase 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's okay.
technically,
Great,
like,
thanks.
there's room to do like, I think some, I don't know if, well, never mind, I won't say it.
We would make phase 3 just the.
Just
lighting.
Yes, it would just
Got
be the
it.
lighting. So yeah, I think it's up
Okay.
to us. You know, we obviously just kind of approved the CIP, but we revise it every year and it's a living, breathing
Right.
document. So I think if this was an element that was still to be done when we're updating the CIP next summer, we'll make sure this is on there and then we can look at all the other things that we're borrowing for and if it makes sense to do in 2025. So yeah, I think this will just get moved from what, you know, this project to putting on the list for looking at to do it next year
Thank you.
in the CIP. Yeah,
Clearing
it
that
won't
up
be
for me.
forgotten. Yeah.
So I'm hearing that the recommended motion that was put together by staff, number 1, would be the basis we'd be interested in. Is there any clarifications or any other modifications to that?
Do we need to read it?
Mm.
I mean, I'll read it. I would make a motion to direct staff to split phase 2 into 2 phases and exclude field lighting for phase 2. Design and construction phase 3 will follow later in as determined in the future capital improvement plans.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
What kind of discussion? Any other discussion from what we added thus far? Let's call for a vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. That's what the park board would recommend. Awesome, thank you. The item B of 5 is Director of Community Development report.
Don't have too much to share. Working with Sonia a lot behind the scenes on the comp and park plans. We did, as I can share, we did set a date now. We'll start advertising for it soon, but for a open house. I think that'll cover both the comp plan and the park plans, and maybe I'm stealing some of Sonia's thunder here too, but that'll be Tuesday, October 24th, from 6 to 8 p.m. It's going to be more of a drop-in type event where this is the public's kind of final chance to make sure that we heard them and that we kind of capture their feedback correctly before things move into the final drafts to be voted on. So there'll be a short presentation towards the beginning and then kind of some opportunities to walk around and put stickers on things and comment, and we'll have it in the community room next door to us here. So 6 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, October 24th. But working on that, a lot of stuff going on at Planning Commission, but I won't bore you all with that.
All right. Any questions or comments? Thank you. And 5C, Programming for a Coordinator report. Turn it to you.
Yes, not too much to report as well, but there are a lot of things in the works, so I will have a ton to report in October. But right now, I'm working on the fee schedule for 2024. So in October, hopefully, I will have something to present to you guys and show you what we're thinking about as far as our rates go. And also on Thursday, I am meeting with Mr. Jameson. We're going to tour the high school concession stand and hopefully get some ideas and figure out what the best way to go about designing our new concession stand would be. So, yeah.
In October, will you also have like a report on how 2023 went as far as the fees?
Yeah, I
Okay,
can.
That'd be
Mhm.
great.
Absolutely.
Well, and usage. I'm
Yeah.
assuming with.
And usage
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, that'd
Okay.
be good too.
Okay. Any questions for Leanna? All right, hearing none. Item 6 was any unfinished business or any items that we have discussion. No one, seeing none. I don't think there's any particular ones. Item 7, new business with regards to the review of the draft number 2 of the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, the core plan. Welcome.
Hi, Sonia.
Good evening. We are here to have another kick at the draft of the corp. So we were here in August, and I have my slides up from that meeting in case we need to refer back to anything. But I don't have a lot prepared by way of detail to go through with you tonight. This brief memo was included in your packets, so we can first kind of review the schedule, and then the second page is a really high-level overview of what changed. Elisa already gave you a little preview of what's coming up next, but we have item 11 there highlighted as where we are in the schedule today. This would be through 2 drafts of creation of the plan, and then we're moving into the final draft stage, final public review, and then adoption. So in September, we would create what we'll call the final draft. We'll go through a little bit of council review, so they'll have an opportunity to review both the draft of the comprehensive plan and the park plan before we get to the public open house, just to make sure that they know what's going on and see if there's any major policy input that they want to have at this stage or not. And then we'll go to the public open house. Elise described that a little bit. So there will be a presentation on both plans, but it's sort of it's designed to be a drop-in event. So people can come right when it starts, or, and then we'll do like a presentation 15 minutes or so after the meeting starts. People can mill about. If we notice that there's a second wave of people, we'll do another presentation. So that's just kind of a preview of what that event looks like. The purpose of that is to have people ask any questions, kind of know what is being proposed before we go into final adoption stages. And then that's listed there, so we're on track to come to potential adoption by the end of the year. The document itself is still in a fairly plain version. So by the time you see the final draft, it will be updated with some prettier graphics. So there will be new cover page and that document theme and things like that. And with the comprehensive plan, which is going through this same schedule, there will be a nice vision summary kind of poster. So even though that's for the comprehensive plan, I think it'll probably reflect some of the feedback and the goals that we've identified through this park planning process. So that'll be a document that the village can use and post on the website, or people can just real quick look at it and say, what are goals for the community? And there will be some open space stuff in there that they can glean from that too. So that being said, in terms of content on the second page, we kind of covered a lot at the last meeting, highlighting what the main policy changes are, what the feedback was that we received from the public. We made a lot of minor changes and typo corrections. There was a figure that was fairly substantially updated. This is 9.2, and that is in the plan. I can bring it up if needed, but just for your information, we kind of updated cost estimates for improvements listed, and then that was recalculated to come up with a new figure that could be used for guiding how you set your park fees. And then the last bullet points there were specific from our discussion last month, recommendations regarding the Scott Street Top Park, and then Florida Avenue Park. So again, on that Florida Avenue issue, this will be addressed more broadly with the West Side Parks Master Plan process. But we did go through and make sure that those were revised. So if there's anything else that we discussed last week that you'd still want to talk about again last month, feel free to bring that up or questions. But this would be the last time that we're here before the Parks Board before we move into that final document creation.
Any questions for?
Yeah, so I think we may have discussed this before now that I've seen it in writing. So these are just recommended improvements. So it says like playing fields at Keller Alpine Meadows, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, right? Like there'll still be discussion on the table for some of these
Right.
improvements.
Right, obviously, any park project has to, well, go through you all on the board to, go through design and everything. But yeah, it would be, these are just things that have been mentioned in the past for these parks. So, you know, at this point, we're not going to do any improvements really to the Keller Alpine area until we do the West Side Parks master plan. And then probably from that, I imagine that the projects will get revised.
Okay,
And
and I think we've seen a map of this before too, but the West Side Park, is that just the farmland part of Alpine Meadows?
So technically, West Side Park, as we've referred to it, is the area that's north of the new library. So kind of the area that's been farmed.
Okay,
But the West Side Parks master plan would include basically everything from, minus the couple commercial properties and now the library, but everything from Alpine to Burr Oak and Jefferson to Netherwood. So kind of that block. So that's West Side Park, Keller Alpine, Lerner, DiMaggio, Dega,
so it'll be
and
all,
Florida Avenue.
okay,
Yep. So it would be inclusive of kind of that whole
Whole
area, looking
area.
at how they're all connected together, various uses. Some are more right now restricted than others in terms of like conservancy and what can be built, if anything, there.
but for this, we have it as Alpine Meadows and West Side
Yep.
Park. Okay, and I was trying to, the north side of the property would be Netherwood Street.
Hmm.
Isn't there already a
where the
parking lot
map-
there?
Sorry.
Isn't there already a parking lot?
Yeah, there is one.
Yep. Off.
So we do it, the recommendation is to do another parking lot?
At this point, again, that was when the thought was that there would be plain fields out there, so
Okay.
like that parking lot would serve that. But again, we're not going to build
Mm-hmm.
that unless it's in line with kind of what that more specific parks plan tells us in the future.
Okay, I was just trying to wrap my head around the,
Mhm.
like, where what West Side Park was versus Color Alpine.
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
I need landmarks. I think
Yeah.
we talked about
Where-
this.
Where the
a lot.
path
We have a
makes
lot of
the
parks.
jog away from
Yeah,
Netherwood, that's the spot that could potentially be a parking lot, which is why
Okay.
they jogged the path the way they did.
Sorry for
But
that.
yeah, it's hard when you have West Side Park, but then you have West Side properties. It's just,
and when you Google Color Alpine, it takes you
It
to the
shows you all
Oregon,
of it,
or
yeah.
it goes to the high school.
Oh.
And if you just do Alpine Meadows, it goes back to
yeah.
the one
Yeah,
over
it's,
here.
It's really confusing because
Mm-hmm.
if you park, sorry, we're
no,
derailing your
that's
thing, but if you park off of Netherwood and you look at the map there, they call the whole thing Keller Alpines Park. They don't call it West Side Park. They don't call it
Yeah, nothing.
The
There's no
letter-
sign that says West Side
No,
Park.
it's all
just kind of.
titled this, which is why it gets really muddy. But
Okay,
sorry.
Yeah.
so I guess I
Sonia-
just, the
Sonia's just sitting
clarification
there.
on,
That's okay. While Lisa's scrolling, on your first question, I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind people too that, this is a big list of potential recommended improvements. And like Elise said, it's got to be approved and everything won't happen and everything might not happen within the long time frame. But it's really good to include almost anything you think you want to do, because one of the main purposes of this is to go after grants. So if you have that valid park plan and it's listed in there, then you could potentially apply for a Knowles Nelson grant or something like that.
I was trying to find the maps, which maybe I didn't include this time around.
I don't think they're in the
They're in
package.
the
Okay,
separate
it was
draft-
just the
separate
document and the
documents.
I know we've seen them.
That was a little bit my thought is to why not to look at a higher level just to prepare for what we potentially could do. And I was wondering if we're grasping as much as what we could potential. And some of it I looked at as just compared to even just restrooms. We got some pretty large parks that could be utilized differently. And if we're looking for a longer plan, considering some of those, we did a really nice job at the Netherwood Park, really nice. But I do think that if you look at the number of restrooms that we truly have within our number of parks, it's pretty limited. And it does limit to the ability to utilize those spaces for community activities because they become short events. We already have a couple of portable, but those aren't quite the same. So that's what I was just visioning, is that we would incorporate some of that planning, saying, hey, it's something to look forward to to incorporate into that. So
Mhm.
that was just one of the thoughts I was look forward to incorporating.
Yeah, I know for like Bethel Greenacre, we added
Yep.
the bathroom facility note here too. But, and just a reminder, the park plan is updated every 5 years versus the comp plan is 10. So it'll be I guess probably 2028 project for 2029 and then the next 4 years after that. So,
I sent the map to your email in case you want to bring it
okay,
up.
thanks.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Lynn.
The only other question that I had, kind of off of that, I saw, is Triangle Park its own park? Because on the parks plan, it says Madsen Memorial and Waterman Triangle Parks together. So we group them together, but we call it just Triangle Park?
Color Alpine.
Well,
I don't
It's,
see how it was listed.
so my understanding, and this is from Phil Van Campen, so if he's watching, I believe, so the band shell and the grassy area is Waterman Triangle Park, and then where the cannon is the Madsen Memorial Park. That was my understanding.
Based on the size, the area of it, that's what I was picking out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's
water
also
fountain.
the water fountain and like the little
It's its own
circular
park.
skinny
Yeah,
area.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I've
Mhm.
also heard that. I mean, the park used to be a lot bigger, right? That parking lot wasn't there, and it was kind of all park. So that'll
And
be
an
part of our
actual triangle.
downtown master plan exploration next year. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, so that's kind of what I was
yeah.
asking,
Mhm.
because we have talked at the village board level of revamping that, but that doesn't have to be in our parks plan, because that's going in the downtown development plan.
Yeah, well, and I think we just don't know what that's going to look like yet. So we would kind of just be speculating on like, we want to have a plaza or we want to expand our, performance space or whatever it is down there. So I think there's recommendations in here to do a downtown master plan and then have the parks,
That are within that area. I
you know,
just,
update
when
it.
Sonia's
Yeah.
saying like reach for the stars sort of idea here, when we talk about recommended improvements for grants or things like that, I
Yeah.
didn't know if we needed to put something on the Triangle Park
Zone.
zone,
Yeah.
if we were gonna make those changes, but
Yeah.
sounds like
I
that'll be in the
also
downtown.
don't know if like the grants that we really be applying for through like the parks plan would be for like that type of
Okay.
park too.
Yeah, and just considering the timing, if you've got it in the budget for next year for a downtown plan, might not start till the end of next year. Recommendations, you're coming up on the next 5-year update to this plan in case there was
Right, in terms of
anything.
implementation,
Yep.
will probably
Yep.
take a couple years. One thing I just noticed is I think this label should just be on the other side
Okay,
of Janesville Street for 12 for Madsen Memorial, since that's kind of more over like senior preppers and people. It should just be. There's a lot of stuff going on over here. We can get tucked in.
hey Sonia, I have one question for you when you have a second.
okay, yep.
In terms of all the recommendations in here, if we don't put something on a recommendation, but in 3 years we want to do it, are we handcuffed by saying, oh, we didn't recommend it in the plan, we can't do it? Or is there still room for other improvements?
In terms of village actions and budgeting and things like that and project planning, it doesn't have to be in here. In terms of grants,
Sure.
I think probably it is limiting, but maybe there's some other language in there throughout the plan that discusses what it is you're trying to do. Ideally, it's specifically mentioned as a recommendation if you're going after a grant.
Sure. Okay.
We're not legally held.
Yeah, I mean, there's
to
there's
the-
constraints to it depending on how you're trying to fund it, but I mean, knowing how fast some things happen here anyway, we might be updating it in 5 years before we get to that project anyway.
Mhm.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none. Sonia, appreciate
Thanks for your time.
joining
Yep,
us.
thank you much.
So no other new business this evening. Our next item is 7B is upcoming meeting dates, October 10th and November 14th, Tuesday of each. Does that all look appropriate to those in attendance?
Sure.
Mark, one note just on meeting dates, because it's come up at Planning Commission too. So I'll probably be getting together with Leanne and Peggy in the next few weeks and look at dates for 24. Obviously, elections are held on Tuesdays, and sometimes they're the second Tuesday of the month, and we have 4 elections next year with all the primaries. So hang on to your hats. But we'll look and see if that will affect any of these dates, and then if we shift to like a Wednesday, we might not want to meet the day after an election just for the staff's sake too. So we might move to like a later week. So we'll try to get a date list to you all. There's also just wanted to make sure, because this came from Planning Commission, 5 o'clock still work for everybody. There's no reason that we have to meet at 5. It's convenient for us because we're already here, but we have meetings like Planning Commission meets at 6:30 because people are often working. They want to get home, have dinner, and come back, and also just for members of the public to be able to do that. So we don't have usually quite the attendance at a park board meeting that we do at Planning Commission, but if it would be more convenient for you all to meet at 5:30 or a different time, you can think about it and let us know. But if there's any initial thoughts or if 5 works just fine, then we can leave it as is.
Any thoughts?
I like 5.
I don't care.
I didn't think I would like 5, but I do like 5.
Yeah.
It's just a little challenge for me to get over here at times. And,
It's
hopefully
only
the
once.
10th,
It's only once a month. So it's,
hopefully the
Little
10th isn't
hustle.
an issue because
Yeah.
we'll be at a training. But we'll make it happen. Otherwise, Andy will have charge.
it's Dave. Wherever he is.
That's right.
We can check in October too, since we're missing Judy, and Judy's retired. She has no excuse.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, we can check.
Okay,
with
thanks for
them,
sharing
too.
that. I think that does make sense. I don't think we had too many problems when we moved to a Wednesday the last 2 meetings. So, so I
Yeah,
don't think
we'll see
that-
what works with all the other meetings, and try not to do too many packets for staff in 1 week too. It's a little
Yes,
crazy.
I
so,
understand that.
mhm.
So are there any items for future meetings or assignments? I have none, fortunately. What comments do the park board have? Any comments from the park board? Yeah.
But I don't think it's like a park board meeting comment.
Okay.
It's more of a I have to clarify something. So I'll do that after.
All right, we'll hang out.
Okay, good. All right. Nothing?
No comments.
Dan?
I
After
was just gonna
last time.
say, we park related. Oregon Nature Alliance just wrapped up our 3rd story walk over at the loop around the new library site in Keller Alpine. So we did a Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day, and probably partner with the library again next year to continue doing that.
Awesome.
And county park wise, we've got the candlelight hike coming up in November, which we can talk about more later.
If
Definitely.
you guys have like a poster or anything for that, if you can send it to us, we can
Sure.
include it in the meeting packets.
Sure, sounds good.
Excellent. You get any feel on how those the poster board stories work out? Do you have any way of measuring or getting?
No, it's really hard to quantify
I think so.
park usage, and let alone people stopping to see those. But while we were putting them out, we had 4 groups stop us and thank us because they said they use the park often and are generally using the stories, or now that it's up, I know I'll bring my grandkids here and stuff like that. But it's aside from sitting there all day and counting people, it'd be really hard. I know it's well received. The library appreciates it as well.
Awesome, beautiful.
How did the tree planting thing go Saturday?
I'm not sure. I think Jeff, he's out of town now, but I think he attended. Yeah, he'll probably give a report, I'm guessing, at the next meeting with some pictures too.
Cool.
It's tough with no water, but I see some tripod sprinklers over it. Trying to do that. Jamie, nothing for you. Okay.
No, surprise, surprise.
I have no comments either, so we'll call for an adjournment. All in favor, or call for a motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
Move a second?
I'll second.
Lynn, all in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you all.
So is that pause in a second?